Siman Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph Kan Rabbanan. It's told in a brisa. Mish yesh lai chamish nashim. Someone that has 5 wives. Henry VIII. I was talking about a Jewish person that has 5 wives, and Makablis Prasmi Balayan. They get food from their husband, but they don't actually live in that one house. They have their own houses. Now, if they would actually eat in the same house, that could be a little different. They're talking about that they're just Makablis Pras. They take their food, like that couple that made Shabbos. They took the food from the parents. They brought it home. So they take the food from the husband's house and they take it back. And there's also 5, another case, 5 servants, 5 slaves. They get their food from the master. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Mata ben Ashim Vaisabavadim, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba Mata Bavadim Vaisabavadim. We're talking about here, is it considered that they all have one location, or are they considered separate locations? If they would all eat at the master's house or the husband's house, then of course it would be one location. The question is, with this type of relationship where they don't stay there, they sleep somewhere else, and the food they don't eat by there, they eat somewhere else, but they take the food from there. Is that considered one location item? So it depends how you look at the relationship, this connection. So there's a machlekes here between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Which one is closer? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says that the women are considered residents at the husband's house, but the avadim are not. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, Mata Bavadim Vaisa ben Ashim. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says no. The servants are closer than the wives. Basically, it's machlekes which one works. Which one has a relationship that doesn't need an Eruv? If they're the only ones there. Okay. It would be considered one family. Amarav, my time with the Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava? Like it says, with Daniel Bitra Malka. Daniel was at the gate of the king. Now he was serving the king, but he wasn't always there. He was there some of the time. Doesn't matter, because it was considered, because he was a servant, he was considered that he was always there. So, in other words, what he's saying is that the servant has this closer relationship to the king, that he's always considered by his master. He's always considered by his master. Yeah, Taisus here has an interesting word. He says, it's also telling me how to remember who holds what. There's 2 Yehudas. There's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. So he says that Bava means a gate. It's true. So Daniel is Bitra Malka. That's Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. That says that the Ebed is the one that has that closer relationship to the master, that he's always considered there.
This is also beautiful Musar, as a Hasidus.
Yeah. So how do you want to translate the wife part?
Yeah, I don't know, but Sarah, I don't know how to think about
it. You translate it as Gashmias. You know, the Sichas that Abram and Sarah is the Nefesh and the Guf. Translate it that it's not so connected. I don't know which way you play with it. Okay. So now the Gemara says, Pshita, the Gemara summarizes what's going on here. Pshita ben Eitzelav Kedamran. That's a Mishnah. Kedamran means, as we said in our Mishnah, that Ha'achin she'eichan al shulchan aviyim v'yishenim b'bateyim tzrichim yev l'chol achad b'achad. that children do need an Eruv. Children do need it. They're not connected to the father enough. They're makabli pras. If they would eat at the table, for sure, but if they're just taking the food, they're sort of on their own. Unless, maybe that was only if there was the urine there. That's only if there were the urine. That's only if by sons, it's only if there was urine. If there weren't the urine. So 1 second. Yeah, if there were no diurim, then it's considered like one. So that's what we're talking about. That would be a close relationship. The Achim, Ben Eitzel Rabbi. Ish Eitzel Baila, Ben Eitzel Rabbi. That is Plukta Rabbi Ben Meseir, Rabbi Ben Baba. That's a machlekes how that works. Which one is closer? One of them is going to work. Which one? What about Talmud Eitzel Rabbi? What if there's a student by his teacher, by his master? Mine. So the Gemara says Toshima. Come and listen. The Rav Bei Reb Chia Amar Einan Tzrichim La'arif She'en Hashem Chanal Shulchan Yisrael Reb Chia. Rav, by his uncle Reb Chia, says we don't need an Eruv because we're all relying on Reb Chia. It was in the yeshiva of Reb Chia. And I guess they would get there, they would sleep other places in that area, the Chatzar. They wouldn't eat in Reb Chia's house, but they would take the food from Reb Chia's house. And he would provide that for them. And they didn't need an Eruv. So that's like Achim. And it's like one of the wife or servant. Reb Chia Bei Rabbi, Amar Einan Sicham La'arif She'en Hashem Chanal Shulchan Yisrael Rabbi. Rabbi was very wealthy. I don't know about Reb Chia. So we said, Reb Chia says, we don't need an Eruv when we were in yeshiva by Rabbi because we would take the food from Rabbi Danasi. So we're considered like one family. Abai asked Rabbi a question. The question that Abai is asking, Rashi is concerned about this because we had a brisa before that already resolved it. And Rashi says that Abai didn't know the brisa. It says, Chamisha Shekavu es Eiruvin, 5 people, they collected the Eruv. But now they want to join with another courtyard. So, Eruv Echad L'Kulan, do they just need one person to take the Eruv over there and he would be a shliach for the whole group? Or does everyone need to make the Eruv with the other group? No, before we said clearly, exactly on the same side, the same location on the page. In Beis Amid Beis, it says, you only need one. That was a brisa before. So, but nevertheless, Abai is asking the question. So Amalei, so who was he asking? The Rabbah. That was the teacher of Abai. Amalei, Eruv Echad L'Kulan. You only need one. Exactly what it says in the brisa. One person can be the messenger. He brings the Eruv over to the other courtyard, and they're already all combined just because of that one person. The Gemara asks like this. Or Abai is asking. But Achin, when it comes to the brothers, if there's no one else living there. So it's just a bunch of houses in a courtyard. It's all brothers with the father. They don't need to make an Eruv. The way the Gemara, the way Abai is expressing this question is he's making it like, it's as if they made an Eruv. It's as if they would go to Eruv, as if they made the Eruv, because it's really one, and they don't need the Eruv at all. But let's say it's as if they made the Eruv. You don't need an Eruv. It's as if they collected the Eruv, already done. Uktani, and when it comes to the brothers, it says in the Mishnah that when do we say that you need to collect an Eruv from each one? The Mishnah started off saying, yeah, the brothers that are together with the father, When they sleep in their own houses, they eat by the father, they sleep in their own house. We said it didn't really mean they eat by the father, it means they collect the food from, they take the food from the father. We said that they need to make everyone needs to make an Eruv when they take Bamidvar Mamurim, when they're making an Eruv with another Chatzar. Okay? It sounds like 5 people that make an Eruv, each one needs to join with other Chatzar. You can't just send one of them to do it. So that's a question here. It's a question on Rabbi's terrace in the Brisa. Rabbi answers, throws in a concept here that affects this whole sugya. Why do they need to make an Eruv? It's changing the pshat in the Mishnah. He's saying, "B'medvar mamurim shemelichin Eiruvin b'makamacher." It doesn't mean to another chatzar. It's not the same case as Chamisha Shegavru Eiruvin. Abaye is saying, Rabbah is saying that what the Mishnah means is that there is one stranger that lives in this courtyard, and he uses the concept of migu. Migu as just as they need to make an Eruv with this person because he's a stranger and it's a separate family. So migu, the hani yasiri, hani nami yasiri. So now we're talking about that everyone needs to make an Eruv in one chatzar. Because this person is a stranger with this brother, so it makes it that he's a stranger with that brother, it makes that the brothers are also considered strangers because of this other person that's there. I don't know how to explain that because of this. And it's just I'm a stranger moves in and then everyone else becomes strangers to each other. That's what's going on. But it's a migu. It's not that they become strangers. It's the din that they need to make one Eruv makes it that they need to make an Eruv with everyone. If they would now have an Eruv and they would go to another chatzar, then Rabbah would be correct. Like the Brisa says, that one person that was joined in the Eruv could take the Eruv over there. Okay. I don't know if it means he has to take all of the food of all of the chatzar, or it doesn't mean, because that would mean that everyone is making an Eruv, or it doesn't mean that he just takes his own food and joins with them, and that's automatically combines them. I'm not sure what it means. I don't know the limit of that. So Sachinam Mister, it also makes sense that this is the Pshat Diktani, because it would be learned in this Mishnah, and Ayin Gimel, I'm sorry, and Ayin Beis, that Mishnah about the brothers. When do we say this? That's only if they're taking it to other places. But if the Eruv was coming to them, or if there was no one else living there in the courtyard, just these brothers, you don't need to make an Eruv. The Gemara doesn't explain what the raya is. Rashi points out, Rashi says, the raya is from, but it says, or there's no one else living in. But if there are other people living there, then you would need to make an Eruv even in this chatzah. Why is that? Because migu, that this person needs to make an Eruv, the brothers also need to make an Eruv. So therefore, we're going to say that everything has to do with the Eruv. Is there someone else that's living there? I don't see the switch in Pshat so clear that the words according to Rabbah meant not that they're taking it to another chatzar, but that they're taking it to someone else's house. Maybe. I don't see the diak just from the way Hachinam Mistabra, just the way he's reading it now. I guess the pshat is that when the Mishnah finishes off, that means that because I don't have a Miko, I don't say that all the brothers need to make an Eruv. That's why, because I don't have one person there that requires the Eruv, so therefore I don't have all the brothers. But if I would have one person there that does require, then I would have to. Okay, what comes out is that even if I do have someone else there that requires an Eruv, but if that person brings the Eruv to the father's house, that would be good enough. It's only when they're bringing the Eruv to the other house. That's what it sounds like. Okay, Shema Mina. This is the pshat. B'nei Reb Chia Barov and Reb Sheshes. Chia Barov and Esther Sheshes. B'nei Beirav. Yeshiva students. B'achli Bebaga. B'asu Ubaisi. Baisi means to sleep. B'beirav. They eat in the cafeteria. That's an open area. However, they sleep in the yeshiva. Oh, good bachim. They fall asleep over there over the sefer. They must have had benches. So they eat outside the yeshiva and they sleep in the yeshiva. So when they measure the 2,000 amos, we're switching topics here. When they're walking outside of their area, 2,000 amos, where do they measure their house from? Talking about where it's not a city, otherwise they would measure from outside the edge of the city. If there is no city, and you have to measure from the edge of their location. Do they say that their house is the base medrash? Or do they say their house is the cafeteria? So Amalei, Rav Sheshes responds, Mashchinan mi beirav. They measure from the base medrash. Now, what the Gemara is saying from this is not the musar of it, that the place where they learn this. The Gemara is saying from this that the place where they sleep, we had a machlekes before. Is it the makom pita or makom lina? Is it the where they eat or the place? What's their main house? Where they eat or where they sleep? So it reminds me of the Shilas on Hanukkah, where to light the menorah. Do you light it in your dormitory room or you light it in the lunchroom? The yeshivas don't ask the question anymore because they had terrible accidents. It's always in the lunchroom nowadays. Not because of the psak versus Lina versus people, just for hazard. But theoretically, there's a question. So he answers, it's the place where they sleep. That's their main house. So Rav Chia Bar Rabban asks a great question back. He says, if that's the case, someone puts his Eruv out 2,000 amos, within 2,000 amos outside the city, because he wants to be able to walk on Shabbos in that direction, 2,000 amos. And he comes and he sleeps in this house. We measure the 2,000 amos from where? From his Eruv. What's his Eruv? This place where he eats or the place where he sleeps? The place where he eats. The whole concept of Eiruvin is a raya against Rav Sheshes' teretz. Sheshes said that the main location of the Bachram was where they sleep. But the Eruv tells me that it's the place where you eat. So he responds, Bahu Anan Sadi, Bahada Anan Sadi. No, we have Anan Sadi. Anan Sadi means we would testify. What it means is that we know 100% that if this person would have been able to sleep there, that's where he would have wanted to sleep. That's basically the answer. Bahu Anan Sadi, by that, when it's Anan Sadi, that means the person that puts his Eruv out. That if he would have been able to sleep over there, he would have definitely wanted to. If it would have been an inn or something, there wasn't. It was just like a road. So he put his Eruv on his food in some, whatever, in some little place. So that's why he had to go back home to sleep, because there wasn't a location there for him. And with this one, there's in the yeshiva bachram, there's an ansadi. The ma'asil riftel beirav nichletvei. If they would be able to have food in the base medrash or in their dormitory, that's where they would stay. That's where they would have eaten. They would want to eat there. Yeah.
In our school, they say we can attest to his intentions. What I mean is,
Right.
meaning we know that's where he wants his deer.
Right. Right. And Ansadi, we are witnesses. That means we can attest to what he would have wanted if he would have been able to. That's okay. I'm not sure why they're not able to eat in the base medrash. It says that if you spend your whole day in the base medrash, you're allowed to eat there. Why aren't they? It must have been a practical thing that could have been that there were no tables. Could have been just places to sit. They listen to the lecture or something, and then they would sleep. I don't know how it was set up. Rami Bar Chama asks of Rav Chisda. He's his father-in-law. He asks, Abu Benai, Rabbi Talmidai, Karabim Dami, Akichidim Dam. Are they considered like two people or like one person? Like it's like one unit. You know, the way Rabbi Vadia Yosef Paskins is he takes all of the poskim that he knows, which is basically everything, and he goes after the majority. So he just lines them all up. Now, there's a big discussion. Rav the Talmidai, did they count as two or did they count as one? Anyway, that's sort of like what's going on here. But here, the relevance of this is like this. Let's say, remember we had a case where there were two courtyards, an inner courtyard and an outer courtyard. If the inner courtyard required an Eruv, but didn't have the Eruv, that was called the Regel HaIseres. They weren't able to carry in their own location. So they also weren't able to carry, not only they weren't able to carry into the outer courtyard, but the people of the outer courtyard weren't able to carry either, because Regel HaIseres, Iseres b'mkayma, Iseres b'makamach. They make it forbidden in the place that they walk through. So here we have a case where there's a Rav Talmidai or Abu Benai. They live in the inner courtyard. Is there a requirement of an Eruv there? And if there is, why? Because it's considered two people. Is it considered two people? Or is it considered one person? If it's one person, then there's no requirement of an Eruv. Tzrichen Eruv, ayin tzrichen Eruv. If no one else is living in that area, do they require an Eruv or not? Okay, apparently, the way that you can carry in a alleyway without having four real walls, or just having a beam across on the front or a lechi, is only because of a special heter that I have, that if I have courtyards that are surrounding an alleyway, we allow you to use the alleyway with this leeway, that you just need a siman at the end. But let's say there was just one person that lived there, not the whole complex. It's not just one courtyard that's attached to an alleyway. The alleyway really is not walled off at the end. It just has a post at the side. Doesn't have a wall there. It's just as a post. So it would seem that he wouldn't be able to carry out. He doesn't have the heter of how a shitufei mubayis works. That you put a post at the end and everyone then contributes food and then it works. If there's only one person. Now the question is, if there's a father and a son, or a teacher and a student that live there, is it considered two people and we should have the leniency, or is it considered one person and we should be strict? The opposite than in other cases. Amalei Tanisua. Started in a brisa. If no one else lives there, then there's no requirement of an Eruv. There's just they're considered an individual. However, we take it the lenient way, the other way as well. We consider them like two people regarding the Mavi. Consider them one person regarding the Eruv, two people regarding the Mavi. Is that correct, Daniel? Is that how it explains it? That you take the leniencies of both sides? I mean, it fits for me. That's what it looked like from Rashi. Okay.
I think so.
Okay, excellent. So now we have a new Mishnah. Chamish Chatzeres Psuches Zu Lezu Psuches Lamavi. 5 courtyards lined up. I should show you a picture, but I don't have it ready, so I'll just do this. I do. Oops. Okay. So, I think. What I need to do over here is, it's not letting me, but what I need to do is I need to open this up. I need to make lines. For some reason, it's not letting me do it. If these are 5 courtyards, and here's a Mavli, but there's an opening here. It's not letting me do it without taking away the whole thing. I want to make a hole here to allow you to walk through. That would be a doorway. And then what the Mishnah said is psuche zulazu. So there's an opening through the back as well. Now, later on in the Gemara is going to have one Amira Rav that's going to say that it actually doesn't say that it's open one to another. That's a problem. But whatever the case is, it's open to, each one is open to the Mavli. And at this point of learning the Mishnah, we'll say that it's also open one to another. If you look at the picture in the Rashi, if you have an old Gemara like I do, you can sort of make it out, but it's not so easy.
The picture by Rashi, it's the same one that they have in Pirish Chai.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. In mine, it's so unclear that I don't even know what it's doing. But anyway, okay. Irvu b'chatzeres v'lei nishtatu b'mavi. They made an Erev Chatzeres. Now, if we learn that they're all connected in the back, so Irvu b'chatzeres means that all the courtyards join together with an Erev Chatzeres. But they didn't make shitufei muvais, which means that they can carry from one courtyard to another, but they can't carry into the alleyway. What's the difference in Erev Chatzeres and a shitufei muvais? One goes in the house, one goes in the courtyard, shitufei muvais goes in the courtyard. However, if you learn that they're not connected in the back, like Rav is going to learn, then Erev b'chatzeres means each courtyard itself made its own personal Erev with the houses that are in that courtyard. But they didn't combine all together. Okay, so there's 2 ways of looking at this. So mutarim b'chatzeres v'asurim b'mavi. They only made an Erev. They didn't make a shituf. They can only carry in the courtyard or courtyards, but they can't carry into the alleyway. We turn the page. We're on top of Ayin Gimel is But if they did make a shitufim mavais, the Gemara assumes at the beginning, when we're going to learn this from the Gemara, we're going to assume that meant that they only made shitufim mavais, which there was an opinion that we learned earlier that if you make a shitufim mavais, you don't need an Erev Chatzeres because that covers it. If you're combined all together in the large way, then all the smaller ones are also coming. That was one opinion. So if they made shitufim mavais, mutar and kanakan, they're mutter to carry into the alleyway, and they're mutter to carry in their chatzah, or from one to another, depending on how you learn it. Let's say everyone did it correct, except they made an Erev Chatzeres, they made a shitufim mavais, except for one fellow, he joined in the shitufim mavais, but he forgot to do his Erev. He forgot to join with the food to be able to carry in this complex itself, in that courtyard, the houses. The Mishnah tells us, heter mutar and kanakan. He's fine. Everyone's permissible. Usually that would mess up everything. Unless he's Mavatal Rishus, or whatever. We'll see, maybe he was Mavatal Rishus. But whatever the case is, it seems that this is a leniency. Okay, mutar and kanakan. If he's Mavatal Rishus, then there's no, that's the regular solution. And then it's not much of a finish. What happens? Let's say it wasn't that he forgot to make the Erev. He forgot to do the shitufim mavais. So then, mutar b'chatzeres v'aser b'mavi. Then it's messed up. The mavi doesn't. They can't carry into the alleyway because there's one individual that forgot to join. Why can't he do bittul? We're going to have to see how the Gemara learns this Mishnah. The Gemara is going to try to make the Mishnah consistent because there is a way of resolving the Mishnah of chopping it into pieces and putting a different scenario in each one, and then it will fit with whatever we want. But it wants to keep it symmetrical. So Shamavi lachatzeres kechatzel abatim, because the mavi in relationship to the courtyards is like the courtyard's relationship to the houses. And if you don't make the Erev one person doesn't make the Erev, then it doesn't work. Not in this scenario, but usually. So too, if someone doesn't make the shitufim mavais, it doesn't work, and he can't carry from the courtyards to the mavi. Mani, the Gemara says, who is the author of our Mishnah? Gemara would like, as it usually likes to do, Reb Meiri. It's Reb Meir. The Amar bin an Erev bin an Shituf. It likes to do this in general because Stam Mishnah is Reb Meir, and that's very convenient to be able to keep it. Usually, Rebbe would take the opinion of Reb Meir if he doesn't say. Here, what we're saying is that the opinion is of Reb Meir because Reb Meir had an argument earlier. If you're in a situation, the scenario is that you have houses that are open to a courtyard, and then courtyards that are open to an alleyway. Do you need to do both? Join the courtyards within the Erev, join the houses within the Erev in the courtyards, and join the courtyards to the alleyway, in the alleyway with the shitufim mavais. For Meir held yes, but in an Erev or being in shituf, you need both. Let's read the middle case of the Mishnah. If they made shitufim mavais, then it's mutar. Sounds like they made a shituf mavais and they didn't make an Erev. Asam l'Rabbanan. It's not Reb Meir's opinion. Reb Meir doesn't hold of that. Reb Meir holds you need to make an Erev. So the Amri b'chadasagir, the Rabbanan held that one was enough, not Reb Meir. So it doesn't fit. When it says Halei Kasha, that's not a problem. The middle case of the Mishnah, because v'mnishtatfum nami ka'amar, it doesn't mean that they only made shituf. It means they also made shituf. It means they made both. It's with Reb Meir. Excellent. Ema Seifa, let's go further in the Mishnah. They made a Erev Chatzeres and they made shitufim mavais. They're really set up over here. They did everything. They joined the courtyards with the houses with the courtyard. They joined the courtyards with the alleyway. However, one person forgot. The halacha is mutarim kanakan. Everything is mutar. Why is it mutar? He didn't make his Erev. Maybe. Idalai batal. if he didn't, what was the word? He didn't forfeit his, not forfeit, didn't give up his, relinquish. Dr. Stein used yesterday. He didn't relinquish his rights to the courtyard. So 1 second, there's one person here that's ruining the Eruv. He didn't relinquish his rights. It's not considered one rishus. So, am I mutarid? Why is it permissible? According to Reb Meir, why is it permissible? So we're trying to say it's Reb Meir, and Reb Meir holds you need to do shituf and Eruv. If you don't call it Reb Meir, then fine. Shituf covers the whole thing. You don't need him, and you don't need anyone to do the Eruv. That would fit nicely, but we're not doing that. We're saying we're trying to fit it with Reb Meir, and nevertheless, Elapshita the battle. It must be that he relinquished his rights to the courtyard, and now we're fine. Everyone here is combined. A Maseifa, if we say that he relinquished his rights, then what's going to happen in the Seif in the last case of the Mishnah? One person of the alleyway didn't join into the shita, to the joining of the alleyway. In the courtyards, and he's also in they're mutter in the courtyards, but he's also in the alleyway because there's one person there. If he relinquished his rights, what's the problem? There's no one here that's left out. You have one person, he relinquished his rights. It must be that he didn't relinquish his rights. He didn't relinquish his rights. That's why it's also. Then let's go back to the middle case. He didn't relinquish his rights. And it's mutter, doesn't fit with Reb Meir. So the Gemara tries to resolve this and says, that would be a solution. He tried to relinquish his rights, but that only works in a courtyard. It doesn't work in a mavli to relinquish your rights. But you can't say that because we have a brisa. Back by the case by the Tzeduki, where he was in there in the alleyway in the mavli, we said that he relinquished his rights and he told them to go out and quickly take possession of it by putting things there. So we see that bittul rishus works by a mavli. See, that's not a good answer. Elapshita delay batal must be that he didn't nullify, he didn't relinquish his rights. And the sefer delay batal reishanami delay batal. And if he's not relinquished his rights by the mavli, then he's not relinquished his rights by the Eruv. Reish of a sefer of Meir Mitzias Rabbanan comes out that you have the Mishnah is so choppy. The first part of the Mishnah is Reb Meir. The last part of the Mishnah is Reb Meir. The middle part of the Mishnah is the Rabbanan's opinion. That's a big teicha. We don't like to do that. It says Kula Reb Meir. It says no. We're going to fit it all with Reb Meir. The time Amayam Reb Meir being an Eruv, will be in a shituf. Why did Reb Meir say that you need to do an Eruv even though you have a shituf? Really, the shituf should cover everything. The answer is that it does cover everything. But we don't want the children to not see that their parents are making an Eruv. Because if there's just a mavli, then that's like this global, a larger area. So the children may not notice everything. But if there's an Eruv between the houses, the local houses in this courtyard, so then they'll be able to see that we make Eruv. And we don't want the children somehow they're going to go to somewhere else, they'll move somewhere else. They'll say, my parents never made an Eruv. So in this scenario here, where even though the Eruv isn't required, but so that the children should see what an Eruv is, we require it. But here, even the Ruve Eruv, they made an Eruv. I know one person didn't, but we still fulfill the point of what the purpose of the Eruv is that they should see an Eruv. That they're going to see. I know one person didn't join in, but the purpose of the Eruv is being worked on. It's being worked out. Now, this is very surprising that the Rabbanan do it like this, because a lot of times I could see the svara going like, even though you're fulfilling the purpose of the Eruv, but like plug Rabbanan, the rabbis don't make distinctions like that. We have to follow the guidelines, and it doesn't follow. For some reason over here, we're not doing that. We're saying that it satisfies that requirement. Amar Rav Yehuda, Rav. I'm sorry. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, Rav leitani psucha zulazu. V'chin Amar Rav Kana. Rav leitani psucha zulazu. I mentioned this when we were learning the Mishnah. Mishnah said 5 courtyards that are open one to each other and open to the alleyway. Comes along Rav Yehuda, who's a student of Rav. Comes along Rav Kahana, who's a student of Rav. And they both tell us that Rav, in his Mishnah, it didn't say that these 5 courtyards are open one to another. It just said that these 5 courtyards are open to the alleyway. What's the pshat? Ikadamri, Rav Kana gufei leitani psucha. Some say it wasn't Rav Kana saying about Rav, it was Rav Kana himself. Amalei Abaye le Rav Yosef. Abaye says to Rav Yosef, my time at leitani psucha, what was wrong with the Mishnah saying that they're open in the back? There's a small door that opens one to another. What's wrong with that? Kasavar says, he holds, Kol shitav she'im machnisim etzir derech tzachim b'mavei lav shmei shitav. Rav holds that the shitav needs to make its way through the alleyway from courtyard to courtyard. It goes around and they collect it, taking it through the first courtyard. They walk into the alleyway with the food, and they go to the next courtyard, they collect it, and then they go to the next courtyard, and they collect it, all through the alleyway. And that's joining the alleyway with the courtyard. If you don't do that, then it's not a good shita. You have to join it together in that process. If there is a back door that allows them to go from one courtyard to another without entering into the alleyway, so then there's a chashash that you may make a shita incorrectly. You may just use the back door. So any shita that's made, in order for a shita to be made to join the alleyway, there has to be that you're not able to get from one courtyard to another without using the alleyway. Places has a kasha. Very interesting kasha. It's the middle of Taisus, the Ramaskal Kop. Vim Taima. The question is like this. If this is the case, that that in order for a shituf to work, there can't be openings from courtyard to courtyard. Only each courtyard needs to have its own exit, one exit that goes to the alleyway. And how did we ever have a machlekes Ramei and the Rabbanon if a shituf could satisfy the requirement for an Eruv? It's impossible to make an Eruv in between courtyards and to also do a shituf, because you can't have a doorway between the courtyards and do a shituf. We have machlekes Ramei and Rabbanon. If you did the shituf, do you still need to do the Eruv? And that's if it's referring to Eruv between courtyards. But according to Rav, what we're saying now, according to the way Rav Yosef is explaining Rav, if you do if you're making a shituf, it's impossible to have an Eruv. So how does Rav Meir hold that you have to do both? You can't do both. They're blocked off. All the courtyards are separated. This gives an interesting, like a middle sort of answer. There's no doorway there, but there's still a window there. So if there's a window, you can still make an Eruv, but it doesn't ruin the shituf wouldn't have been able to go through unless it went around. So it makes the case like a very small possibility for this to really work. Okay, Esvei. Abai asks to Rabbi Yosef. Balabai sheyeshutuf l'shchina l'zebiyayin l'zebiyayin ain't shichl ha'arav. We said that if there's one person that's a partner, not because of a symbolic shituf, Shabbos, that he wants to be able to walk in that alleyway, but he actually is a genuine partner. They bought a barrel of wine bought it together with this person, and he bought wine together with this person. Maybe it's in one barrel. That's what Rav said. He bought a barrel of wine. Did they take that barrel into the alleyway, into the first courtyard? Then they moved it to the other one. Then they moved it to the other one. Then they moved it back into whichever one it was locating or whatever. Did they have to go through that whole process? We said that it was a genuine partnership. He went out, he bought it. The horse and buggy brought it into his yard, into his courtyard, and that's where it stayed. We didn't make all of these complications that in order to make an Eruv, in order to make the Shitav, you have to walk this barrel of wine through the courtyards, through the alleyway. The Gemara answers, no, that's what happened. That's what they did. They walked it through, and that's how it worked. Okay, it's not something that it's not probable that that's actually what happened, but it is possible. Okay. Another question. There's a Mishnah later on. How do you make a shita? So the way it's done is that one person is mizaka to everyone else some food. With mizaka, that means he gifts it to them. That way you don't have to go around collecting. But this is a huge issue, according to the way we're explaining. The food is not traveling anywhere. It's not going into. He happened to have the food there. This one person does the zikui, is mizaka by gifting it to everyone else, and they don't even have to collect it. And he makes the shita. So the Gemara says, "Hasam nami dafki v'ayle." He was mizaked, and he carries it around to each courtyard to the alleyway. Okay. Also, another big deichik. We never learned that they has to do that. Maskifla Rabba Barchan and Elamiata Ikanli Paskisala Yachinami Glayavishitav. You want to tell me that it's not going to work? If he tells him, if he's makne the bread that he has in his basket, that means it seems like it was clear that you did not have to do this. You can just be makne to everyone this bread. Without moving it around. If you want to tell me that it really doesn't work, let's say there's a bunch of friends, maybe students, that they're having a feast on Erev Shabbos, and it becomes Shabbos. So this is the whole sugi of how to make kiddush and all of that. But that's not the issue here. Over here, the issue is, do they have an Eruv? Of course they have an Eruv. They have bread on the table, and they're all eating from it. That's their Eruv. Some say that it works even for a shitav. Okay, is that a machlekes? So Amar Rabba Leipligi. There's no machlekes here. It depends where their feast was. Was it in the summer? They were eating outside. Was it in the winter? They're eating inside. So it depends. An Eruv needs to be placed in a house, because we said that's creating one diurin, one residence. So the food needs to be in a house, and the shittif is in a courtyard because it's creating one outdoor area together. It's joining all the alleyway with the courtyard. So it depends where their masiba was, where their party was. Whatever the case is, they did not need to take the food from courtyard to courtyard, walking through the alleyway to join the alleyway in. I'm sorry. What's the reason for Rav? Because Rav holds an interesting thing. We mentioned this before, that in order for an alleyway to become permissible, you need to have more than one person there. So Rav holds that you need to have a courtyard, two courtyards, and each courtyard needs to have two batim. The problem is that if all the courtyards are joined together, then, which in our case we had 5 courtyards that are joined and through back doors. If you make an Eruv and join all those courtyards together, so how many courtyards do you have that are open to the Mavli? There were 5 of them. However, It turns out that you really only have one courtyard that's open because they made an Eruv. They all join. What does an Eruv accomplish? That they all become one. So now you're not going to be able to matter the mavi with one courtyard. You need to have two courtyards. And all of those five became one because they made an Eruv. According to Rav, when are you going to be able to have shitufim avos where there's no Eruv between the courtyards? But it's even more than that. I think it's what we're saying is that it can't be possible to have an Eruv. Can't be possible. Either there's no doorway between them, or they're on other sides of the alleyway. Then you couldn't have made an Eruv without joining the alleyway. If they're on opposite sides of the alleyway, then you need a shituf to join them. There's no Eruv that between. Kigufa. Let's go a little further. Amar Rav, when can an alleyway become permissible with the post at the end or a beam across the top? That's only that's Rav's opinion. You have one house without a courtyard. It just opens up into the alleyway. And you have another one with a courtyard. You still need, the courtyard needs to have a house, according to Shmuel. So it's a house and a courtyard in a house. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu chorba. He says that even if there's a broken down house, that's also counted. That would make it enough to be able to make a shitufim avos. Amalei Abayla Rabbi Yosef. Abayla says to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yochanan afilu b'shvil shel kramim. Let's say there was a vineyard, which is not at all considered a dwelling area. Is that considered enough to make a shitufim avos? Is that considered that we have two people here, or two areas that can be joined together, that you should be able to carry in the alleyway also, because on one side is a vineyard, and on the other side is the house with the courtyard. No, it would still need to be that at the other end, there's potential for living. I know the house is broken, but there's still potential there. That wouldn't work. Rav Huna Bar Chinna says that this is Rabbi Yochanan following his shita. The Tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah is Amar Rab Shimon, or Rab Shimon Amar, Echad Gagas, Vechad Karpifas, Vechad Chatzeres, Rishus Achasim, Lakelim, Sheshav Salsechem, Lakelim, Sheshav Subisech Abayas. Rab Shimon's opinion was that the purpose of Eruv Chatzeres is to allow you to take from the house into the courtyard. And that's all. But courtyards from one to another, and courtyards to roofs, and courtyards to backyards are all considered one rishus, and you don't need an Eruv Chatzeres to do that. It's just removing from house to courtyard. That's the whole concept of Eruv Chatzeres. That's Reb Shimon's opinion. And if anything is in the courtyard, when Shabbos starts, that can go from courtyard to courtyard. Anything that's in the house cannot go out. And if it goes out, then it went out without the. You would need an Eruv to get it out. That's the idea. Rav halacha Reb Shimon. Rav passes like Reb Shimon. That's only if you didn't make an Eruv. Okay, now there's an issue. If you made an Eruv in the courtyard, but you didn't make an Eruv from courtyard to courtyard. So now what's going to happen is I'm allowed to take out of my house into the courtyard. Now it creates a problem because Reb Shimon holds that you're allowed to go from courtyard to courtyard because it's all one rishus. The problem is that I can't take from my house into the other courtyard. I could have taken from my courtyard into the other courtyard. And now because I have permissibility to take out of my house, it ruins the sheet of Reb Shimon that joins all the courtyards together. Because now we have items here that are from the house as well. If there's no Eruv, then every item that's in the courtyard was from the courtyard before Shabbos. But once I have the Eruv, then I have items in my first courtyard that came from the house, and that's not supposed to go to the next courtyard. Then I'm concerned if there's an Eruv, I'm gonna take from my house into another courtyard. Shmuel says it doesn't matter. Even if you made an Eruv, we don't have a concern that you're going to take it from your house into the following courtyard. You're taking it from your house into your courtyard. Fine. Things that were not in the house can go from courtyard to courtyard. Things from the house will go into your courtyard and stop. Alma, whatever the case is, we see from this that tradition and shita is Legos Rinan Dilma Asila Fuki Mani the Batim Lachatzer. We don't have a concern that items from the house are going to go into the Chatzer. We don't have a concern. Here's the catch. I have a Chatzer that's open to an alleyway. And on the other side is a house, a broken down house. I was able to make Shitufei Mavayis here. I didn't need to make Shitufei Mavayis. I was able to close off, because there was no one living there. I was able to close off the mavoi with a post and a lechi because it's considered like there's two people here. That means I'm allowed to take out of my house and I'm allowed to carry into the alleyway, but I'm still not allowed to take it into the churva. Why? Because whoever the owner of the churva is never made an eruv here because he wasn't there. I don't know if that's going to help me because he was. So, but I can't carry into there. I can't carry. That's not considered my property. But the alleyway is. So what Rabbi Yochanan is saying is, I don't have a concern that you're going to take from your property past the alleyway into the churva that didn't join into this. Just like we see that you don't have a concern that items from the house are going to go past your courtyard into the following.